the topic CIO's Perspective BFSI at the Crossroads of Disruption The Power of Data Virtualization, for which I would like to welcome Rohit Sharma, Vice President TNO DBS Bank, Prasanna Lohar, Vice President Technology, Digital Innovation and Architecture, DCB Bank, Vinod Kumar, Chief Information Officer, Fino Payments Bank, Anupama Narayanan, AVP, Data Governance and Data Privacy, Standard Chartered Bank, KV Deepu, President, Head Operations and Customer Service, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, Pinkesh Amvert, Chief Information Officer and Director IT, CRIF India, Robin Tandon, Director of Product Marketing, Denodo, and Radhika Sehgal, Partner Technology, Ernst& Young. A very warm welcome to you all. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Radhika Sehgal, Partner Technology, Ernst& Young, who will be moderating the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much to have me here on this very important panel discussion where we are going to discuss BFSI at the crossroads of disruption, the power of data virtualization with our esteemed panelists. Digital transformation is accelerating. Before the pandemic, digital was largely viewed as a new channel for sales predominantly, but now for companies in most industries, digital is seen as the primary business model. And this shift affects everything, including user expectation, the customer experience, competition, revenue generation, and even the enterprise long-term success. So it is not an option anymore, it is mandatory. And when we look at BFSI in particular, it has accelerated like never before with zero touch financing across both B2B and B2C channel. Let us now discuss with our eminent panel. My first question I would like to go to Rohit. When we talk about financial services, we talk about data origination, we talk about the data being the oil. From financial services standpoint, there are many sources to get a data, but this data has to be really reliable, high quality. To facilitate this, we need virtualization. From your standpoint, I would like to hear what you think is data virtualization and how banking industry is leveraging it, and why is it so essential? Rohit? Rohit, you're on mute.
Are you able to listen?
Yes, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
So thanks, Elets team and Radhika to have me here. Referring to the question, what relevance of data virtualization and how it can help BFSI industry in attaining its objectives. So if we go beyond 90s or even in the initial decade of the 21st century, we have observed that the information technology has changed the BFSI vertical or its applicability, wherein the much dependence is there on the data and the information, and that data is coming from all the directions. It is coming from the customer onboarding systems. It is coming from the core banking systems are reliant on the data which is being fed from these customer onboarding systems. The transactions are being carried out either from the core banking system or from the various alternate delivery channels, which may be there is a fleet of new age payment systems. So in a nutshell, I can say that data is coming from all the directions, and that data becomes a bread and butter for the bank to have its business to be proceeding. Like this data can be used to have the decision to be made by the management, by the executives. This data can be used for cross selling. This data can be used for upselling. But the basic framework over here is that the data is coming from multiple directions and it being stored in a single organization in multiple systems. So where is the concept of data virtualization comes over here, that with this particular layer being introduced in between, the data which is spread across various entities, various components, various modules, various applications and their databases, or even in form of flat files or various different data storing mechanisms. The data virtualization concept can come in between, and utilizing this concept or this mechanism, the management or the internal or external consumers of this data can have a single unified view of the data, although in the behind of the scenes the data is spread across various different systems or different databases. So the data virtualization is a concept which helps the organizations in accumulating the data and presenting a single view. Like take the classical example of presenting a customer 360 degree. Now, customer 360 degree view can be presented only when the respective front end is able to seek data from all the systems, the relevant systems of the bank or the respective organization, and then only this data can be presented over the 360-degree view. I can say that data visualization plays a very critical and important role, wherein the single view of data spread across various modules or components can be shown to the internal or external consumers. So that's my take on this.
Thank you, Rohit, and an excellent take. You spoke about single unified view. You gave an example of a customer 360. I would like to go to Robin. Robin, what's your view on it, and what examples would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much. So I work for Denodo Technologies, and we are a data virtualization specialist company. So we provide solutions to enable data virtualization across your organizations. We have many, many customers in the banking sector. So what do we actually do? Well, what we're really doing is we're providing that layer, as Rohit described, that allows you to abstract the data in a single unified view, so you don't have data silos, and you minimize your replication costs and minimize your exposure to risk from multiple data copies, which is a real issue from a data governance perspective. So we've been in business for over 20 years, and we have customers across the planet. But when Rohit mentioned about the unified customer view, the single customer view, it reminded me of a very specific case study that we did a couple of years ago with a large bank in Florida. They were quite acquisition hungry, and they would buy local regional banks. And the real thing they wanted to be able to do was understand their customer, who could be sitting in 6 or 7 different systems in one transaction. So they wanted to enable their sales teams so that if I went into the bank to take out a mortgage, for them to know that I also had a loan from the other bank, and I would be probably interested in an insurance policy to support my decision making. So having that unified single 360-degree customer view is a really important aspect that you can achieve using data virtualization. We have a lot of other use cases in the banking sector which spring to mind. We have a Brazilian customer called Secredi, which handle over 7 million members across Brazil. And they're more of a credit union, and they're doing some data science exercises to try and get a better view of their customers. So there's another use case of data virtualization. So we've got the 360-degree view, we've got the data science view, and then we have other customers in banking who are doing things like cloud migration projects, where they're trying to maximize their IT spend or minimize their IT spend, and take advantage of migrating some of their data to more modern infrastructures. And putting in that DV layer, or data virtualization layer, allows them to achieve this in a risk-free manner. So I think those would be the key points to raise at this stage.
And a very important point, and both of you pointed out how customer 360 is the most important thing for BFSI. And me being part of BFSI industry can talk about this particular fact that almost all big banks are actually working on getting this single view, especially when banks acquire another bank, or there is a collaboration with fintech. It becomes adds even further dimensions to the complications, and having a single customer 360-degree view is one of the most critical success factor for any BFSI, and which can be brought to you through data virtualization. And when we talk about data virtualization, we cannot not talk about analytics. So there is a Gartner report that states that by 2023, more than 33% of large organizations will have analysts practicing decision intelligence, including decision modeling. So I would like to go to Vinod. Vinod, how, according to you, virtualization combined with data analytics helps us in telling a cohesive story?
Uh, Thank you, Radhika. So and team, and it's very important aspect of the data which is actually running in the banks, or for that matter any BFSI segment, how they are using the data and how much that is actually impacting the day-to-day operation as well as the continual operation of any institution. So while you looking at data virtualization, as Mr. Robin also mentioned, the level of data and the kind of data which is actually flowing from various systems due to various the customer acquiring models, the normal MAS and the other API integration, the open banking, which is actually become more common as of now. The data flow into the system is totally different than what it used to be maybe some 2 to 3 years back. And the quantum of data which is actually coming like a structured data and unstructured data is also changed, because after coming the video KYCs and other things, the requirement of data and the unstructured data is also increased from multi-level in any of the data system. And how this is actually impacting, or how this is actually helping the organization, especially in the banking industry, to do their business, especially while we are talking about the sales. The entire sales is actually running on the data that is available, the projection which is happening, and the predictability which is actually coming through the system. And especially the virtualization data become very important, because they need to know, the sales team needs to know actually what happened the yesterday, or what is the trending which is happening to increase their sales, to boost their marketing strategy or the sales strategy for various products, various regions, and how to beat the competition, and how to understand the competition as well. So from a data virtualization point of view, it is not just overall understanding about the market where it stands, but how to proceed on each and every step is actually coming from there. So take the marketing also. To take another example on the marketing side, the marketing is completely done today is depending on the data availability, the reports availability, the predictability. Actually, where to advertise what, which channel, which what kind of medium that should be, whether it should be a newspaper, it should be magazine, or it should be a normal cable TV, or it should be a the normal OTT platform. So those kind of the decisions are taken today from the entire data which is coming from the overall systems. So there the virtualization become very important, because uh, the data is coming from various sources. Comparing is happening somewhere, maybe in the big data or no, Hadoop or some other platform. But from the front end users, or maybe the departments who are actually using this data for making any decision, making understanding the industry growth, the pattern that is happening purely from the availability of all these data which is actually getting displayed, or which is actually given to them on a day-to-day basis, on a need basis. So the entire structure of data, the maintenance of the data become changed, that it should be depending on one or two systems, or it is actually okay, you can pull from one system or two systems. That scenario is changed. Now where the data is coming from, it is immaterial for the team. They need the information right at the screen or in the report to take any decision at any point of time. So the overall, if you look at the industry is changed. It is not just a MIS now taken from one or two systems and combining. It is more of the complete sales team, marketing, the digital strategy. To an extent, I can say even the regulators are actually looking at the analytics capability in the organization. So I can some of the audit which I have gone through, where the auditors are also a part of it. They were keep on looking at what are the capabilities your analytic systems are having. So to the extent, it's not just internal, but it is actually purely from an external entities as well, regulatory entities as well. Building the data from a virtualization point of view, the integrity of the data and availability of the data, the information at any point of time become very a crucial part of the organization, rather than any other action in any of the organization, I can say. Yeah, that's it.
And thanks for giving that view. And you talked about structured and unstructured data coming together, and that is adding another level of complications for virtualization. You also spoke about smart marketing and how that is leveraging predictive analytics over virtualized data. I'd like to move to KV. Deepu, do you want to add any other angle from a BFSI standpoint on how virtualization is combining with data analytics? Any other example that you would like to share?
Yeah. Thank you, Radhika. I think to the points, covered by the earlier speakers, right? Essentially, data virtualization talks about, in very simple terms, and I'm trying to keep it crisp, to your point during our debrief. Essentially, it's about collating data from, various silos, putting a governance and security structure in place, and giving, real-time access. So one area it helps is, in terms of, democratizing, the entire access of data to people at the front end, because the ones who are closest to the customer, they can basically pull data using customer facing assets, using the middleware, and then give real-time decisions, whether it's pricing or whether it's a resolution to customers. To just give you, one quick example, we have our customers, using mobile apps. So earlier, if let's say they had to file a motor claim, they would have to call us up and get a surveyor over for physical inspection. That is not required now. That entire need has been obviated. They just need to upload photographs, and then, in a matter of minutes, we can get back to them. So I think we've been able to notch up customer experience dramatically, thanks to data virtualization.
And a very good example shared. Insurance is actually picking up the data virtualization as well as predictive analytics, even for giving and deciding what premium to be charged. And we are on the receiving end of that as well. So thanks for sharing that as well, Kevidipu. With this, let's move to the next topic. In fact, this was something that was brought about by Robin. Robin, you spoke about the entire cloud, and I would like to ask Pinkesh here first. One of the most important infrastructure requirement for data and analytics is cloud. Now, modernizing infrastructure and IT operation is core, essential to any disruption that's happening. So, now from your standpoint, what is your take on should be the CIO action plan and best practices?
It's a very good question, Radhika, because whenever we are dealing with humongous data, the support required to manage such kind of data, the infrastructure, and to process the big huge data, right? We need a strong technology as well to back that those kind of analytics which we need to do. And for that, I think there are most of the people in the industry are adopting, cloud because of the scale up. You can do scale up whenever you need more space and more CPUs to run those analytics. And there are a lot of low cost storage also available. So if you have you don't have to worry about the data that I have so much data. What should I do? Should I archive? What should I keep in the real time database? So for that also low cost storage is also available. Then you can always move data between the storage, which is very very fast. At the same time, the new technology which is coming is CI/CD or DevOps kind of an technology is also available in the market, which means that our IT operations can do any new changes in the applications. Anything can be deployed very very quickly. They can without impacting or bringing the entire system down. People are talking about big technology like big data, right? So there also we have a lot of open source available to manage those humongous data and run analytics on top of that. So that is also one of the things we are doing. And then uh, breaking our application into small services, which we call as an APIfication or microservice architecture, right? So we are doing that as well, so that our infrastructure team can manage these kind of applications also really well. And whenever we have to spin up some more infrastructure, which means spinning up of dockers or containers, which we are talking about nowadays, that also can be done very very fast. So to in short, if I have to be very very crisp in summarizing, lot of infrastructural improvement has gone into place from last 2 to 3 years because of this humongous data. And to manage that, a lot of new technologies like containers, Dockerization, CI/CD, DevOps are getting into place. And these softwares are available in the cloud, so you don't have to develop everything. It is all available on the shelf, and you just have to make sure that your applications are compatible with them, and you can use it using the technology like Jenkins and Kubernetes. I would say that. Radhika.
Thanks, Pinkesh. You talked about legacy modernization through microservices architecture, movement to cloud, as well as cloud native development, and all of these are the priorities from your standpoint on CIO action plan. Now, I would like to move now to Prasanna. Now, Prasanna, now, do you want to add anything on what other CIO action plans are there and best practices for modernizing infrastructure? Prasanna,
Yeah,
you're
hi.
speaking on mute.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So I think thank you so much, Radhika, for this question. I think a very, very important aspect for a CIOs or CXOs for modernizing their architecture while they are running current architecture, right? And if you look at the how journey is happening for customers today on mobility and data movement, right? Wherever the data size also increasing, so it makes sense for CIOs to understand from where data is coming. Most of our friends spoken about the data sources, how they are utilizing virtualization aspect to take care of data, understanding data, and to create some analytics out of that data, right? So coming back, while we know the sources of data, how do we utilize this data in interest of a business aspirations, whether to implement some kind of a big data kind of a ecosystem and to move ahead, right? Or while you spoke about modernization with the cloud technology, right? Is it really required to go on a cloud? Yes, absolutely. But while I am working on a cloud, is it really required to look at the edge computing aspect also or not? So I think it's very, very important, and approach should be like practice it out with some of those non-financial applications on a cloud. Look at those mathematics on a cloud, and then come back and see while your service provider also getting ready for the cloud applications, right? So, say example, core banking, very few applications or on a cloud from Infosys or so on, right? Although it is not that much matured. So while application servers are service providers are getting matured on the cloud, it makes sense for organization to practice it out, see the overall ROI structure around while they are utilizing Azure or any other options, interoperability aspects. How do we take these current applications? Is there any migration policy approach need to take care for existing applications? Right, so I think we need while we are on the journey, we need some of the champions or some reskilling exercise for existing people to understand how modernization is happening. So modernization will happen across all, and we start from the customer expectation. While they are operating on mobile devices, tomorrow they will operating on wearables or smart houses, right? So why how do we take care of this data which is coming from the 360 degree? Again, once it is there, understand the customer 360 degree and give back a customer a bidirectional experience. So it's very, very important for modernization. So example, there are some organizations who are on digital first journey. They may not need that kind of strategy to be created, but organizations who are sitting in on 30 40 years on existing architecture, how do we amalgam the next level of architecture while taking care of a current it's a different ball game altogether. It People have to go cautiously adapting what applications we should go on a modernized structure. If we talk about virtualization, SD-WANs, implementing various other security relevant ecosystems. So it goes hand in hand for either you say this is a governance structure which is a COE structure which will take complete modernization or take complete organization along, because it's not only one IT team has to do modernization. It has to be accepted by business teams. It has to be signed off by board members, top management. So it has to be a plan, regularly revisited and given to the top management. This is how is the overall progress for, and that all depends upon a type of organization. Are you already on modernization structure, modern people, or you are there in mid, or you have a lot to do around that? So based upon that, it's very, very important because customer is the same, right? Customer for all the three types of organization, whether modern, in between, or legacy or type of organization, is going to be the same. If you really want to win the race or take care of a customer, engage the customer, very, very apt for modernizing across all endpoints, within, outside, on the front side where a customer is interacting, in between where customer is interacting, those interfaces are talking to the backend systems, and in the backend taking care of upgrades, taking care of virtualization, taking care of data, right? and various other data frameworks built on AI or big data. So I think everything goes hand in hand, Radhika. Yeah.
No, and thanks for that, Prasanna. And you talked about CIO's focus should be on ROI, interoperability. You also touched about front to back integrated teams, but keeping customer experience at the core. So a lot of priorities that you talked about, and thanks for that. One on from this topic, let's move to the other topics. When we are talking about data, there is another statistics which is here that 35% of large organization today is either a seller or buyer of the data via formal online data marketplace. And when we are talking about buying and selling of the data, customer data privacy concerns are quickly growing up, and we know of a lot of legal issues that keep cropping up in the media in and around that, and especially from a BFSI standpoint. And from that element, I would like to move to Anupama. Anupama, data governance becomes a key concern in adopting new innovations and technology, all of what we have been talking about today. How banking CIOs are shifting towards governed data accesses, and what are the strategies and trends that you would like to share based on your experience?
So it's an exciting time in the industry, and this conversation is obviously not complete if we don't talk data defense, right? So every organization is having to balance between data defense and data offense. Both are non-negotiable, because if you don't do data defense, then it's going to be too costly. You're probably witnessing a fraud loss or a breach. Then that means fines and loss of reputation. And on the other hand, data offense, if you don't do that, if you're not doing if you're not churning insights, if you're not, there's no actionable intel that you're first creating and acting on, then there's missed opportunity or trailing behind competition. So it's a fine balancing act today. And now on data governance, I think, be it whether an organization is launching a new product, or let's say it's a collaboration with a new fintech or a new bank, whatever the case may be, I think uh, there are three simple steps I'd like to call out, right? This is just hygiene, but I think it's worth talking about. One is know your data. Like Vinod said, be it unstructured data or structured data, or be it on the cloud or on-prem, identify your critical data elements. Those that are critical to your business from a risk perspective, from a regulator's perspective. We also have a very complex regulatory environment across the globe, not just in India. So from all those perspectives, identify what your critical data elements are, know your data. Second, monitor your data. So there are data flows, there's data lineage, data is constantly moving within your organization, as well as there's movement across organization. So there again, data localization laws, data minimization, data sovereignty standards apply. So monitor the flow of your data, monitor closely how data moves. Third, obviously, we can talk about self-service analytics and the real-time decisioning and all of that, but none of it is uh, all of it is pointless if there is no good quality data. So for high quality data, assess from time to time the quality of data in your organization, and do timely remediation. So those are, I think, three data governance staples I would like to call out. And from a privacy standpoint, I think today consent is at the heart of any most of the work that we do. And innovation and compliance, they are at a constant trade-off. We can't do one at the cost of other. And I think keeping the customer, not just the customer employee, whoever, the consent-driven framework is very important, especially when dealing with open API frameworks and when data is being shared left, right, center. So that's another point I'd like to add.
Thanks, Anupama, and thanks for bringing this concept of data defense and then data offense. Well, I would not like to use the word offense because we are leveraging insights from data, but balancing it out, and you spoke about it now very well on that. And very important element is on data consent. You also talked about how know your data, monitor your data, and prevent the data use data localization. That was good insights from you. I would like to move back to Vinod. Vinod, anything that you would like to add to this?
So no, I do fully agree with what Anupama mentioned. The being in the banking industry, it's not about banking any BFSI segment, or maybe in the or maybe manufacturing or health industry or anywhere. The data become so important. It is so critical, and It's so volatile also as on today. The data is getting changed every day. The demographic of customers getting changed every now and then. The accessibility that is required for various resources in multiple ways, the way they want to have it, that is also getting changed. So especially the way Anubhav mentioned, know your data and understand where the data is lying and how to use the data, that become very critical. And when to get this, actually getting all this data. On top of that, the regulatory requirements are very stringent right now, irrespective of the organization like it or not. The amount of cost the organization to spend on protecting the data from a data privacy point of view, the accessibility point of view, and from a regulatory requirement point of view. The same time, to ensure that all the information that is required is available to the organization at the right time and whenever they require it. So that became very big challenge. A lot of modern technologies and other things are actually getting implemented in the industry, in the organizations, to ensure that all these requirements are actually collectively ensured to for the growth of the organization, for the availability of the data. So that is what actually you're going today, and everybody is aware the kind of the penalties and penalties which is actually imposing on be it BFSI segment or any other segment also, if there's a data privacy issues actually getting occurred within India, or if, especially if it's in the GDPR kind of environment, anybody is regulated by that also, the total impact is very hefty if at all there's a breach is occurred. So everyone is actually very careful about anything which is actually getting exposed, and the complete control is put in place in the organizations.
No, absolutely. And Vinod, you talked about cost a lot. And now there is one statistics which says that cyber crime is costing the world an upwards of $6 trillion. And close to $30 billion is spent alone by BFSI on cybersecurity. And with this, I would like to move to the next topic on that's where regulatory agencies are so active. Even RBI, our IRDA are taking steps to secure BFSI companies from cyber threat, and it's all required. But what are the challenges in defining a data privacy strategy in this digital era? I would like to go to KV Deepu here again. Do you want to share anything from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Radhika. I think from one point of view, data privacy itself, sounds like an oxymoron, because, the more data you have, then, the more need for privacy, right? They seem to go in opposite directions. I think there are, two, three angles, and I'll keep it crisp because I think, Anupama and Vinod covered, various dimensions of the whole privacy landscape. One, it has to be, consent based and explicit consent. It's not implicit, right? It's got to be opt-in, it can't be opt-out, right? Because that's very clear initially. The second is, to ensure that, across the entire ecosystem, because today it's not just the firm, right? The data could reside with your partners, the data could reside with, all the entities you operate with across the entire, ecosystem. So how do you ensure that, for example, you have self-governance mechanisms, right? You have, for example, data which auto-destructs, right? Once it's, outlived its utility. So I think those are challenges which we need to see, because it may happen in your core, but does it happen across, the entire spectrum? That is the second challenge. A third challenge is, the multiple form factors of data that we have. Typically we look at, for example, historically, you will have mechanisms in place, for, let's say, destroying paper, right? But when it comes paperless, when you have voice, when you have text, when you have images, when you have video, across all form factors, right? Has the privacy angle, kept pace, with the, with the growth in the volume and velocity of this data? I think, that's one challenge. And when we typically talk about data, we look at the technical dimensions. I think we all need to equally focus on the cultural aspect, especially when people are working from home, right? How do you ensure that, people are also aware? One small blip, can have a huge dent, on the firm's reputation. So I think these are 3-4 angles, which come to mind, when you look at the classic challenges that you face when you're putting a data governance structure in place.
Very important. And you talked about data privacy needs to be explicit and not implicit, and that's really required. We don't know how many tick in the box that we do every day when we are using any specific app. And you talked about opting in instead of opting out. So that's a very, very important concept that needs to be looked into for sure. Robin, do you want to talk about anything more from this perspective?
Yes. So I think we cast our mind back, and if we look at it from the data virtualization standpoint, and the data governance and how analytics has evolved over the years. Typically, analytics and a lot of the data that we have in our organizations is replications. So we've done all of this extract, transform, reload, and the organization has data silos across the organization, and this causes a major data governance and data security risk. So one of the important things to do is to be able to put that abstraction layer in place. So you only have one place where you know that the data is, and then you can start applying the rules from a data privacy perspective, as well as a governance. So by extracting enhanced metadata, which you can do automatically using artificial intelligence, we can create policies which will allow us to govern and manage the data, which minimizes the risk. Because actually, with the whole idea about data privacy, it's all about risk minimization, and all of the regulations, whether they be the Indian regulations, the GDPR regulations, compliance is about showing that you've done everything possible to minimize it. And it's also about good business practice. So going back to the opt-in rather than opt-out, that's just great business practice. It's a proper way of managing people's data. So technologies are there to help us. It's important that we apply the right technologies for the right reasons. It's also important that we don't create these silos of replicated data across the organization that can easily be exposed. And I think one of the comments there was, when we're all working from home, we have less governance around us, and it's easy to make a mistake. So by not exposing the possibility of making mistakes, by having a good governed environment in place and only exposing the right data to the right roles and resources, so I may only be able to see an aggregated view of the data, whereas maybe my colleagues in a branch may be able to see the accounts of a customer, but they could only see the account balance. They might not be able to see something like your social security number. So all of these things are important in terms of the privacy angles and in terms of the data integrity and the governance.
Good points there, Robin, in terms of authentication, authorization, data abstraction, and then using AI on top of it. Very well articulated. And Prasanna had talked about digital first enterprise. So my next question I would like to move on is, digital first enterprise will be half of the economy by next year. That means more than 50% of world GDP will be contributed by digital first enterprises. I would like to move to Pinkesh. Pinkesh, what are the important disruptive advances in technology directly impacting the financial services today?
So Radhika, to answer this, I think you already spoke about digital first, right? So there are three. I will touch with three examples, which people are using in this BFSI segment. One is cloud, two, and second is digital first, and third is machine learning. I will touch all 3 points. So by cloud, people are now thinking to move most of their products which are they want to go to the digital, moving to cloud, because we don't know what kind of peak volume we have to support, what kind of user journey is going to happen. So scaling up is much easier whenever during, especially in festive season in India, we need higher infrastructure, higher CPUs, higher memories to process data, right? So for that, people are moving to cloud. Second, we are seeing that a lot of machine learning which is already available in the cloud, cloud native technology. So people are using those. So we don't need real data scientists to execute those kind of machine learning algorithms and all those things. So people are using that to do their analytics and all. So time to market is very fast. For example, they want to do any campaign running or something like that. The data, they can just move their data to the cloud and run some algorithms, and the output is ready, and then they can shoot out the marketing campaign to their customers. So that is another disruptive things which I've seen happening a lot. And third is this big data technology, right, which people are using a lot. That is also available on the shelf on the cloud, so people are using that for that as well. and customer journey, which is very very important, right? So because now nobody's going to the branch, everybody's coming online. Most of the credits, like home loan, personal loans, are being taken online itself. The end-to-end process from onboarding till underwriting, everything is happening online. So customer journey, and those customer journey are also created using cloud native languages only. So the time to market again here is very very fast. You don't have to write code to develop an LOS. Don't have to wait for 6 months or 1 year. Within a month, with using the cloud technology, you are just up and running. So those kind of disruption, I'm seeing that BFSI segment, banks are coming up with a lot of new products, and because of this cloud acceptance, they are able to roll out to all this because of this technology advances. They are roll out to the market. All these products are very very fast as well. Radhika, I would say that.
No, thanks. And you spoke a lot about customer journey and how can that be enabled through data and data insights. Rohit, would you like to add anything on this?
So while Pinkesh has covered most of the disruptive things which are helping customers and the organization in achieving their objectives related to businesses, one more thing I wanted to highlight is related to various concepts which may be already available in Western countries or the such organizations like Google, etc. They are using, but in India these things are now getting introduced, wherein the systems availabilities are considered as most truthful way in allowing our services to be made available to internal and external customers of the organizations, wherein concepts like site reliability engineering, wherein self-healing systems through automatic scripting, etc., wherein any production issue can be looked into with the help of site reliability engineering, with the help of AI/ML techniques. These downtimes can be made minimum and minimal, and the respective systems can be made available on real 24 into 7 basis. So such things are also now being introduced by BFSI technology teams, and these are actually helping the organization in maintaining their service levels to optimum. So that's the take from my side.
Good take. You have added self-healing systems to the core of disruptive technology as well. So with this, we can summarize this particular discussion. It has been a good discussion where we talked about CIO's priorities, and while CIO has to support their core business at the lowest possible cost, they will have to balance the same with building in parallel a digital first enterprise which is self-sustaining from an ROI perspective. You all brought about the focus on enhancing customer experience through hyper personalized data and engagement, building truly agile API driven platform on cloud, and integrating cloud and edge for intelligent data. There was a lot of discussion that we did on building security and trust. Last but not the least, one element that is very important is to attract, retain, and reskill the talent while imbibing them to the culture of the organization and culture of innovation. Anything on this anybody would like to add? Anupama, talent.
Yeah, if I can add, Radhika, I think reskilling is something which is very much part of the landscape nowadays. I think, especially in the last couple of years, when it's been a digital way of not just working but living. I think all the time that people have saved on commuting, has been utilized for digital learning and development. And today, you don't have to call people into a 3-day classroom and cram everything into their minds. You can stagger it over a period of time so that even the absorption is better. And all studies show, right, if people do not reskill themselves for the new world, they'll be they will be obsolete. So therefore, it's very much part of the landscape. We have an in-house training team which basically focuses on reskilling people for on various aspects related to their role as well as leadership on both soft skills and hard skills. So I think it's pretty much part of the landscape today.
Absolutely, it is. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your wonderful insights. It was very, very engaging, and we got a lot of good insights here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Radhika, for moderating it so well,
Yeah,
and
thank
thanks
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Radhika.
you.
Thanks, team.
Yeah, excellent discussion. Thank you all. Thanks, Radhika.
Thank you everyone for joining with us today and sharing such insightful views. It was one great end to the session. Now, I would request all the panelists to stay back as I would present the appreciation certificates. Can we have the certificates on the screen, please? Thank you, Mr. Rohit Sharma, Vice President T&O, DBS Bank. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Vice President Technology, Digital Innovation and Architecture, DCB Bank Limited. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vinod Kumar, Chief Information Officer, Fino Payments Bank. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your views.
Most
Thank
welcome.
you, Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anupama Narayanan, AVP Data Governance and Data Privacy, Standard Chartered Bank. Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome.
Thank,
Thank you.
thank you, Radhika Sehgal, Partner Technology, Ernst& Young. Thank you, ma'am, for moderating the session so beautifully. Thank you. Thank
My
you, all the
pleasure. Thank
speakers,
you.
for joining. Thank you, Mr. Robin Tandon, Director of Product Marketing, Denodo. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Pinkesh
Thank you.
Amwat, Chief Information Officer and Director IT, CRIF India. Thank you, sir, for joining and sharing your views.
Thank you.
Director. Thank you, Mr. KV Deepu, President and Head of Operations and Customer Service, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Thank you, sir, for joining and sharing your views.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Elets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.